Yo, and welcome back to the channel. I know it has been a fat minute. I have been having a lot going on in my life over this past month, a little over a month now, and I really just needed to kind of step away from the whole YouTube stuff and just get everything in my life sorted out. So we'll slowly be getting back into all of it here, especially with any future DLC here for Wonderlands and also the new Destiny season coming up soon. So thank you guys all for being patient with me over this past month, and I'm really excited to get back into making some content. In today's video, I just want to talk about the current state of Wonderlands because, it's not very good right now. There's a lot of issues with the game. A lot of people are moving away from the game. We're going to get all into that here a little bit later into the video. I also just wanted to thank Epic NNG for providing the gameplay that you guys are seeing in this video. I haven't had a lot of time to record a lot of stuff for the game, so he's really helped me out and saved me some time. So I'll have a link to his channel in the description down below. But for this video specifically, we're just gonna be going over some numbers and overall my opinions on how the game got to this point. But really quick, before we jumped into the video, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Raid Shadow Legends. I just wanted to congratulate Raid on celebrating its 3-year anniversary this month. And to celebrate Raid's 3rd anniversary, I wanted to share with you guys a top 3 list of my favorite champions in the game. Now, coming in at number 3, I'm gonna have to give this to Astralon. The overall aesthetic of this character with the gray and the red is just perfect, especially with those red angel wings. I'm going to have to give number 2 to Roxanne. Overall, this champion is just insane with everything going on. There's some like voodoo stuff going on and just a bunch of horns. It is overall insane. Now at number 1, the coolest champion in the entire game to me is Brackus the Shifter. This werewolf is insane, especially with all of the purple smoke going on and particle effects. I think this champion just looks fantastic. So what's new? A part of Raid's 3-year anniversary, they got an insane amount of things in store. They're kicking it off with free gifts for everyone and then adding a bunch of new content and events. We're looking at new champions and new artifact sets. And in case that's not enough, they got a full month of special events and tournaments with some of Raid's best ever prizes on offer. This includes champions, tons of shards, and a ton of other goodies. So right now is the perfect time to jump into Raid if you haven't already. If you aren't already playing Raid, if you guys hit my link in the description or scan my QR code, you'll get a huge anniversary package worth $40. We're talking 3 champions at once, Misericord, Tiger Soul, and Romero, plus 10 Magic XP brews, 10 Force XP brews, and 10 Spirit brews. All this treasure will be waiting for you guys right here. Big thank you to Raid for sponsoring today's video. Let's go ahead and start out with some numbers before we get into my opinions. So taking a look at the Google Trends graph for this game, we can see how it has drastically died down in less than 2 weeks after its release. So that big peak you guys see is the release day, and it very quickly falls off. Now, the Borderlands franchise is not a small line of games. These games draw a lot of players, so it's really tough to see this steep of a drop-off. And then, as you guys can even see, once we get about a month into when they release the first DLC on April 21st, you can see there's not even a spike at that point. Even the DLC was not enough to get people back into the game and curious about what's going on. And then if we think about how all the DLC are kind of planned to be in the same nature as this first one, I really don't know how they're going to be able to attract people back to the game with just these. There's going to have to be something else in addition to these DLCs as well. Like in BL3, they had the takedowns that were just free updates. So we're going to have to see something of that caliber if Wonderlands is going to have any hope of bringing people back. Now, if you guys are around the gaming world, you know how big of a flop Battlefield 2042 was this past fall, and yet it was pulling more viewers on Twitch than Wonderlands was at the time of me just loading up Twitch and looking at my categories, which is crazy to me considering Battlefield is now about 6 months old and Wonderlands is just a hair over a month. So it's a little upsetting to see that a game as big of a flop as 2042 is still beating out Wonderlands at times. Also, if you just take a look at all of your favorite Borderlands, Wonderlands creators, a lot of them are going back to like Borderlands 2 or just completely different games entirely. So it's very clear from an objective numbers standpoint that Wonderlands is not being handled and received well. So let's go ahead and break down on why I think that is. Now, to me, the biggest issue that is just plaguing Wonderlands is the same issue that Borderlands 3 had. It's Gearbox's unwillingness to deviate from their intended goals. It's very clear that they have a vision in mind for these games, and despite having so much feedback from creators and just everybody else from the community, they just will not be changing up any of these different aspects. Some of the biggest examples of this was like the Mayhem system back in Borderlands 3, or just in general across Borderlands 3, BL3, and also here in Wonderlands, just the endgame scaling. And then on top of that, you have the endgame content itself. And then on top of that, the overall balance of these games. So basically, the OP levels in Borderlands 2, Mayhem levels in Borderlands 3, and now Chaos levels in Wonderlands are just pretty much all iterations of each other. At the end of the day, none of them ended up working out, and they created a whole mess of issues. And in Wonderlands, there was an attempt to fix the issues that Mayhem levels had, but at the end of the day, when you're playing the only endgame content that we have, it's essentially just Mayhem levels again. All of the Mayhem modifiers that are in the Chaos Chambers, all these curses, they're literally just carbon copies of the Mayhem modifiers that we had in Borderlands 3, which we all know nobody liked those. It's the whole reason they created Mayhem 11 back in Borderlands 3, where there is no modifiers whatsoever. And then one of my biggest issues, personal issues with these games, is you always have these enemies and weapons drastically outscaling the player level, and it just leads to a whole mess of balance issues, and it's just way too complicated for Gearbox to solve. And at this point, they really just don't seem to have learned any lessons from these previous games, and they just keep repeating these mistakes over and over. When things get outscaled like this, you end up just getting health gated by pretty much any single attack ever. So pretty much any shield that relies on having a charge is essentially worthless. That's why everybody just uses like the same 2 shields here in Wonderlands, because they're pretty much all reliant on it being broken or having no charge in it at all. It's because there's really no need. All you need to do is just make sure you have a health gate active, and that's the only survivability you need, and it's the only effective survivability in the entire game. And then when the weapons get scaled way out of proportion, some are just way too powerful, and also some are just not strong enough, which leads us perfectly into the post-launch support of Wonderlands. Now, the frequency of these hotfixes has been pretty good. It has been almost every single week, I feel like, since the game has launched, but a lot of the times they're really just not all that substantial. You'll get some buffs here, but also we get a lot of nerfs and stuff, which we're going to get to here in a second. Looking back at Borderlands 3, that first month of the game, every single week there was huge updates to the game. Like, it was like pages of changes and fixes to the game. And Wonderlands, you just kind of have like a handful, some small things here and there. But they are repeating the same thing that they did in Borderlands 3, and they're focusing on these balance changes way too much when there are way bigger priorities in the game at that time. And this is coming from somebody who is very pro nerfs and buffs in PvE games when they're warranted. Like, if something's really, really strong and just clearly dominating, like you have to nerf it. Even if it's a PvE game, it's just how it works, it's how game balance works. But I also know how a large portion of the community feels about this. Obviously, I've been making Borderlands content for a couple years now. I know how all of you guys react to all of these different nerfs and balance changes that Gearbox does. So I know what's best for the health of the game as well, and they really need to be looking at these big issues first and then tackle the balance later on. And it's not like this is something that they're unaware of as well. We've had a lot of creators telling them how the community will react. Obviously, they see on like Twitter, for example, how the community reacts to like all of these different balance changes, and they will still end up putting them through and not really focusing on these big issues. Now, I know a lot of these big issues can't be solved in hotfixes. A lot of the times they are going to be needed to solved in patches, which are really only coming around once a month is usually what they end up doing. But in today's gaming world, you can't just give a game one chance a month to fix just some of the issues. You need to get these fixes out as soon as possible. Now, I can't know all of the inner workings of how Gearbox, 2K, all of that goes down with releasing these patches, but the harsh reality is in today's day and age, players will end up just leaving and moving on to different games if they have to wait that long to see these desired changes. So I'm not sure what on that end needs to change, but that's seriously something they're going to have to look at so they can get these big changes out more frequently. Now let's go ahead and start taking a look at the endgame content itself, the Chaos Chamber, and also we're going to be mentioning the mirrors, the DLC in here. So when the game first came out, I honestly thought Chaos Chamber was the best at launch endgame a Borderlands game has ever launched with, and I still believe that. I thought Chaos Chamber was really good, and it had so much potential with changes. It just seems like they are fully committing to Chaos Chamber being the one and only endgame in the game. Like, if we take a look back at Borderlands 3, we had Circles of Slaughter, Trials, Takedowns, and also at the end, classic raid bosses. So it's like, over time, we've had a lot of different ways of playing the game, but in Wonderlands, it seems like all they want you to go and do is go play Chaos Chamber. And then the mirrors, obviously some of that stuff is going to go into the Chaos Chamber, and then themselves are kind of a variation of chaos chambers themselves. So it just seems like all they want you to do is this one and only thing. And this goes back into them setting their sights on just one vision and one vision only. No matter what the community wants, it just seems like that's the only thing they want. In gaming, everyone plays games differently, so you need to give the players multiple ways of playing, not just forcing everybody into 1 to 2 activities forever for everything. I really do believe Wonderlands has the potential to be the greatest game in the franchise. Better than Borderlands 2, better than Borderlands 3. If it just gets given the love and the content it deserves. That's seriously just its biggest issue right now. It has a fantastic gameplay loop. It's just no content to coincide with it. I would love to see them give takedowns another go, because Malawan was hands down the best piece of content we've ever had in a Borderlands game. Guardian Takedown was, you love it or you hate it. It wasn't really executed perfectly, but that was just one attempt at something new in terms of takedowns. So I would love for them to take another go at it and tackle some new ideas. At the bare minimum, we just need anything else in addition to Chaos Chambers, just some other way of playing the game once you have finished the main story. I absolutely love Wonderlands. I just want to see it thrive. Everything in here I've said with just love for the game. All I want to do is just finally see Wonderlands be the game that it can be. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the current state of Wonderlands in my eyes. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on how the game is shaping up in your opinion, what you love about it, what you don't love about it, all that sort of stuff. Let me know in the comments down below. Like I said at the start, we're going to be easing back into content here. Once there's a little bit more to cover in terms of Wonderlands and also Destiny, we'll be making a lot more videos on that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for those videos. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Also consider subscribing for more Wonderlands content. But anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.